Today is May 20th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It's a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today, out of the core text, we're going to begin Chapter 6 in action by reading pages 72 through 73. And out of the personal stories from They Stopped in Time, we're going to be continuing our journey through Story 17, Window of Opportunity, by reading pages 423 and 425. And finally, out of the 12 and 12, we are going to continue our journey through tradition number 4 by reading page 147. So with all that, my friends, hope you're doing well this morning. We've been given a brand new set of 24 hours, and that is always a good thing. So let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. Chapter 6, Into Action. Page 72 and 73. Having made our personal inventory, what should we do about it? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects, and we have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these things are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step, in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think that we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought that they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought that they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense that we find it necessary, until they told somebody else all their life story. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistency is made worse by the things that he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think that someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes that they will never see the light of day. He's under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. Small wonder many alcoholics in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chance for recovery. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. All right, interesting stuff there. Can't wait to come back to this in a minute. All right, in the personal story window of opportunity, we're going to be reading pages 423 through 425 today. Our friend here is certainly starting to feel isolated in college and feeling like he doesn't fit in because a lot of the people he's surrounded by, they're just as smart as he is, but they have a lot more money. So we can see that some of this fear and insecurity is going to play a part in his choices to drink. We're beginning on page 423. Then I discovered alcohol. I had tried it a few times in high school, but never enough to get drunk. I knew that getting drunk meant being out of control. My escape plan required that I always keep my wits about me. I was too afraid to be out of control. When I got to college, however, that fear left me. In order to fit in, I pretended at first that I had as extensive a drinking history as many of my classmates. It was not long before my history surpassed everyone's. My drinking career was short and destructive, and my alcoholic progression was very fast. I got drunk for the first time in October. By November, people were willing to wager money that I could not go 1 week without a drink. I won and, in celebration, drank myself sick. By January, I was a daily drunk, and by April, a daily drug user as well. I didn't last too long. As I look back on that period, I realize how true it is that one of the primary differences between alcoholics and non-alcoholics is that non-alcoholics change their behavior to meet their goals, and alcoholics change their goals to meet their behavior. Everything that had been important to me, all my dreams, goals, and aspirations, were swept away in a wave of booze. I realized quickly that I could not drink and function at any high level. That did not matter. I was willing to give up anything so that I could keep drinking. I went from being a solid A student to nearly flunking out of school, from being appointed a class leader to being shunned as a pariah. I almost never went to class and did little of the required reading. I never attended any of the many cultural events sponsored by the college. I forsook everything that makes college worthwhile in favor of drinking. Occasionally, some sliver of pride would work its way through the chaos, resentment, and fear and cause me to look at my life. But the shame was too great, and I would drive it back down with bottles of vodka and cases of beer. Because my college was fairly small, it didn't take long for me to come to the attention of the college deans. It was under their watchful eyes that I first agreed to enter counseling. While the administration saw this as an opportunity to help a troubled student, I saw it as a bargain. I would go to counseling to make them happy, and they would owe me one. Not surprisingly, the counseling had no effect. My daily drinking continued unabated. About a year later, I realized that I was in trouble. I had failed class during the winter term. I rarely attended and had not turned in the term paper on which 50% of the grade was based. The spring term was looking equally bleak. I was enrolled in a class that I had attended only once. I had not written any of the required papers or bothered to show up for the midterm examination. I was bound for failure and expulsion. My life had become unmanageable, and I knew it. I went back to the dean who had guided me into counseling and, for the first time, admitted to myself and to someone else that I had a problem with alcohol. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I wasn't even sure what that was. But I knew that my life was out of control. The dean allowed me to withdraw from that class the day before the final exam on one condition. I had to enter a treatment center. I agreed. A few days went by. With the pressure lifted, my life did not look so unmanageable. In fact, it looked as if I was back in the saddle. So I thanked the dean for his help, but told him that I'd be okay on my own. I did not go to rehab. 2 weeks later, I walked through a second-story window. After insulting the emergency room personnel, I slipped into unconsciousness, where I remained for 5 days. I awoke in a neck brace with complete double vision. My parents were furious. I was flown home and the future looked bleak. God's timing, however, is impeccable. My college had a long history of drinkers, including Dr. Bob. At the time of my accident, the deans were assessing how to respond to student alcohol abuse and were waiting to try out their latest idea, Alcoholics Anonymous. I was the test case. They told me in no uncertain terms that I would never get back into this college unless I went to AA. Under that pressure, I went to my first meeting. Looking back, that may have been my first healthy decision I ever made with respect to alcohol. One definition of a bottom is the point where the last thing you lost or the next thing you are about to lose is more important to you than the booze. That point is different for everyone, and some of us die before we get there. Alright, some interesting stuff here, guys. That's all we're going to be reading out of Window of Opportunity today. And finally, we are on tradition number 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups, or AA as a whole. And we're going to go ahead and read page 147. This meant, of course, that we had been given the courage to declare each AA group an individual entity, strictly reliant on its own conscience as a guide to action. In charting this enormous expanse of freedom, we found it necessary to post only 2 storm signals. A group ought not do anything which would greatly injure AA as a whole, nor ought it affiliate itself with anything or anybody else. There will be real danger should we commence to call some groups wet and others dry, still others Republican or Communist, and yet others Catholic or Protestant. The AA group would have to stick to its course or be hopelessly lost. Sobriety had to be its sole objective. In all other respects, there was a perfect freedom of will and action. Every group had a right to be wrong. When AA was still young, lots of eager groups were forming. In a town we'll call Middleton, a real crackerjack had started up. The townspeople were as hot as firecrackers about it. Stargazing, the elders dreamed of innovations. They figured the town needed a great big alcoholic center, a kind of pilot plant that AA groups could duplicate everywhere. Beginning on the ground floor, there would be a club. In the second story, they would sober up drunks and hand them currency for their back debts. In the third deck would house an educational project, quite non-controversial, of course. In imagination, the gleaming center was to go up several stories more, but 3 would do for a start. This would take a lot of money, other people's money. Believe it or not, wealthy townsfolk bought the idea. Alright, and as we've said a few times before, money for AA can often complicate things. But going back to the core text real quick, I can definitely relate to the middle of page 73. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outside world, he presents his stage character. Especially when I was drinking, I would have this image, right, of being this nice guy and everything, and I wanted everybody to like me. And I would do so many things to manipulate things to go in my favor, to protect my image. But deep down, I was hurting. Deep down, I was doing some selfish stuff that was not only hurting me, but hurting other people. And it was hard to live that double life. It really was. It says here, this one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. That was me. I can so relate to that. So, when I started doing these steps, and especially when I got into step 5, which is what we're talking about today, it was a little scary for me, wanting to protect my image and everything, and being afraid that if I reveal these things, all parts of these things that I was really struggling with in my alcoholism, I was afraid that I'd lose my friendships, or I was afraid of losing the friendship of the one I was confessing these things to. But again, I've said it many times, the line stood out to me, half measures availeth nothing. I knew that I couldn't give this person 95% of my ugly truth. If I really wanted to be sober, I knew I had to tell him everything. All the things I was deeply ashamed about that were really affecting my serenity. I didn't know that at the time, but I did know that I wanted to be honest. So finally, I tell my first sponsor everything that I was struggling with from my inventory from step 4. And the crazy thing was, he thanked me and hugged me and said, "Thank you for trusting me with all that." And then he broke down, the root causes of each one of these things, why I might have done each one of these things. Calling me out too, but in a loving way. And then he told me some of his story, some of his struggles, which made me feel a lot better, like I wasn't the only one who did some of these things. Because for the longest time, I thought I was the only one. And if anyone knew what I had done, they would never be my friend again. But I think that was the beginning, honestly and truly, I think that was the beginning of healing for me. Where I started realizing, holy cow, these steps work. I started feeling different. Because I didn't realize it, but I was carrying around a giant bag of rocks. And I think when I made the decision in step 3, I got rid of some of those rocks. It started to feel lighter. And then step 4 and 5, I felt like that's where most of the rocks I began to let go. And I'll never forget driving home, just feeling so much relief after my 5th step. So much relief. I was like, I don't have to deal with this anymore. I can let that go. Now, don't get me wrong. My brain sometimes wants to go back and rehash the past, but not near as much as it used to. Praise God. So I sit here as a very blessed man today. These steps have worked in my life, and I won't say this. These steps are not a religion to me or anything like that. It's not like I worship these steps. I worship the God of my understanding, and these steps have helped me to become closer to the God of my understanding. And I'm grateful. For me, these 12 steps are God for dummies. It's taught me how to be honest. If you are sober today, my friend, you are a miracle. And those who love you are very proud of you. Again, I'm no guru or anything like that. I am just a friend in recovery. I don't speak on behalf of AA or anything. I'm just telling you my story. And I'm so grateful you're in this lifeboat of recovery with me. If we're given another set of 24 hours, my friends, I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.